This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au. With more homes for sale than anywhere else, realestate.com.au is Australia's #1 address in property.
Welcome back. There are 3,121 homes scheduled for auction this week. That's up 13% when compared to the same week last year. New South Wales will hold about 1,100 auctions, with roughly 950 of them in Sydney. Victoria will hold about 1,400 auctions, with virtually all of them in Melbourne. Queensland will hold about 300 auctions, with roughly half of them in regional areas. South Australia will hold about 180 auctions, with most of them in Adelaide. Western Australia, Tasmania and the Northern Territory will hold 23 auctions between them, and the ACT will hold 105 auctions. Taking a look at the most viewed properties going to auction this weekend, the top home in Victoria is 122 to 124 Park Street, St Kilda West. This property is actually 2 homes in one. Price guide is $6.3 to $6.9 million. Top home in New South Wales is 6 The Fairway, Chatswood West. This 4-bedder has 4 bathrooms and a private garden and nice lawn. The top property in Queensland is 44-7 Tari Place, Trinity Beach, about 20 minutes north of Cairns. This home's surrounded by rainforest. Top property in South Australia is 24 Yeelana Avenue, Seaview Downs in Adelaide's southern suburbs. And the top property in Canberra is 8 Sinclair Street, Canberra. And the most viewed property on the REA Group website this week is 7 Wimbrel Avenue, Upper Coomera in Queensland. This 4-bedder sits just off the freeway between the Gold Coast and Brisbane. Built in 2017, this modern home has plenty of open-plan living areas. The house is painted a beige colour, both inside and out. There's polished beige tiles throughout the home, beige carpets and white highlights. The property sits on about 700 square metres, has a big lawn and a swimming pool. Well, joining me now is Anne Flaherty from REA Group. And thanks so much for your time. Let's start with the auctions this weekend. Seems like it'll be another pretty big one for the property market.
Yeah, we do have a lot of homes coming to auction this weekend. It's one of the last few big weekends of auctions we're going to see before the Christmas New Year period hits, when of course the market slows down. So there's a lot of buyers and sellers who are now looking over the next few weeks to get in before they have to wait another few months before things really kick off into next year.
Yeah, when does the market really start to pick up again next year?
Look, we start to see things pick up again gradually over the second half of January, slowly and surely, but really it's more leading into March that we really start to see a big pickup of activity, particularly once we get closer to that pre-Easter selling period.
All right, it's the 1st of December today, so that means you just released your property price report for November. How did prices in November perform across Australia?
Well, we saw property prices rise for the 11th consecutive month this year. What we have seen, though, is that property price growth has slowed down. This is likely due to the influx of properties that we saw hit the market over November. There was a lot of choice for buyers, and we saw an increased supply help to meet some of the depth of that buyer demand out there.
Yeah, we just got this table on the screen now, just showing some of the big price increases across the country. But Darwin stands out because prices went down in Darwin. Is there anything different happening up in the top end in November?
Yeah, well, one of the things with Darwin is that we haven't seen the same level of population growth there as we have seen in the other states. We know, of course, that rapid population growth has been a real key driver of demand for real estate, both to buy and to rent, over the past year. So in Darwin, we don't have that same level of population growth, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen that outperformance of property against higher interest rates.
And just looking further at the report, you've also got some stats just showing the level of price growth since March 2020. The numbers are pretty astonishing. You've got Adelaide up about 57%, Brisbane up really strongly as well. This really seems like substantial price increases here.
Well, it's absolutely staggering when we look at the level of price growth post-March 2020. We saw prices absolutely surge around the country, particularly over 2021. It was one of the fastest episodes of price growth in Australia's history. Then we did see prices decrease a little over the back half of last year, but this year they've really recovered those gains, and in most capital cities are now sitting well above where they were just 12 months ago.
Yeah, capital cities looking like they're doing pretty well, but how about regional areas? Have they been as strong as the big capital cities?
Look, it's a mixed bag. If we look at prices back to the start of the pandemic, regional areas have performed incredibly well. We saw a lot of people move further out into the regions during that time. But we see an outperformance of some regions compared to others. So regional South Australia, regional Queensland, those are markets that have done incredibly well. On the other hand, we haven't seen the same level of outperformance in places like regional Victoria. Victoria has been the weakest performing capital city post-COVID. And even though regional Victoria outperformed Greater Melbourne, it hasn't performed as strong as those other regional areas.
Now, you touched on this at the start of the interview, but property prices, where do they go from here? Is growth going to start to slow down a little bit?
Look, I really do think it depends on how much stock we see hit the market next year. Now, the fact that we've had 11 months of consecutive price rises is really absolutely staggering if you consider how much interest rates have increased. So we've had 13 rate rises now from last year to where we are at the moment. Buyers can borrow about 30% less from where they could, but of course, property prices have reached new heights. Now, this really shows the fact that buyer demand is deep enough to withstand these increases in interest rates.
And Flaherty from REA Group, thanks for coming on the program this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.